You're tuning into Black and White Sports on YouTube. The no-holds-barred truth on sports. The main event starts now.
All right, Black and White Sports supporters. Well, the ratings are in for the big matchup that happened this past Sunday involving Caitlin Clark in the reality check game against the Phoenix Mercury and one dinosaur Diana Taurasi and Brittany Griner, supposed to be two of the biggest names in the W. Well, guess what? It just became Diana Taurasi's most watched game in the history of her career. And it was not because of her. Well, it might have been partly because of her, because people wanted to see Caitlin Clark whip that A. And she did. She did whip that trick, indeed, as Trick Williams would say on NXT. It was a big, big rating. By the way, it's funny how all these games all seem to have Caitlin Clark. It's also funny when we get to this article about the ratings where Sports Media Watch decides to take a shot at Clark by bringing up old NBC games. Now, a couple of things about the NBC years. Because none of these games, as big as they are, none of them have broke into the top 10 biggest, largest WNBA audiences ever. Okay, all those were from 97 through 2002. I'm going to tell you why. Number one, way less TV options in 1997 through 2002, particularly on streaming, right? Netflix, Peacock, etc. Amazon Prime, taking your eyes off the television. Plus, all of these games back then were on NBC, free over-the-air network television. That's another big deal. If all these games were on ABC or if all these games were on NBC, I don't know how close they would get to the top 10 games ever. But the top 10 biggest games in the last 24 years, man, it's all Caitlin Clark. Even the one game that drew 1 million viewers that didn't have her, she led the game in from the game in front of it. And somehow, some way, people actually hung around for that game. I didn't. I watched her game and I turned it off. Generational matchup between Caitlin Clark and Diana Taurasi delivered another historic audience for the WNBA. Sunday's Fever Mercury WNBA regular season game averaged 1.91 million viewers on ESPN, marking the fourth largest WNBA audience since Memorial Day 2001. The top four have come this season alone, all games involving, you guessed it, Caitlin Clark and the Fever. You know, that last Chicago Sky game, it got a 2.3. It was a big rating, biggest of the year, and biggest in 24 years. You got to wonder if this game would have been on actual free network television like ABC or CBS like that game was, whether or not this game with Taurasi might have actually beat that Angel Reese game. Indiana Fever's win was the most watched WNBA game ever to involve Phoenix great Diana Taurasi. How great is she? Her previous most watched WNBA game was her career debut against the Connecticut Sun in May of 2004. Were they the Connecticut Sun back then? Who knows? 1.43 million. So after 20 years, this ended up being Taurasi's most watched game. Talk about a reality check for her. Fever and Mercury, the 9th WNBA game this season to average at least 1 million viewers. The league entered this season having gone nearly 16 years without a single seven-figure audience. Oh, and the other thing I should have mentioned about those old 97 through 02 NBC games, there was no politics back then. All right? Nobody knew anybody's, there wasn't any social justice goals and all this pride crap invading sports back then, and people would tune in for basketball. I mean, that was a thing, believe it or not. The 9 games with 1 million viewers is the most in a single WNBA season since the league's final year in NBC in 2002. As one would expect, 8 of the 9 games to top 1 million viewers involve Clark in the Fever. The exception was Sparks Aces May 18th, which had a direct lead-in from the Fever against New York. That's hilarious. It bears noting that despite the viewership marks by Clark and the Fever this season, none of the games have yet to rank among the top 10 most WNBA games of all time, a list that consists exclusively of games on NBC from 97 to 02. I just gave you all the reasons that's a thing, right? No politics, much fewer options on television, and all the games on free network television. That makes a difference even today, even in today's viewing. So that's something to keep in mind there. Now, the other thing we're going to talk about is Paige Bueckers has come out. She, of course, is supposed to be the next big thing coming out of UConn, right? I don't think she's going to budge the needle in the slightest. I don't. You might see a bump between like her and Caitlin Clark playing next year, but her on her own, it's going to be crickets. I mean, seriously, it's going to be crickets. One of college basketball's biggest returning stars is appreciative of Caitlin Clark's first professional season. I'm sure she is, because Caitlin Clark's going to give everybody a raise. Bueckers is gonna benefit from that. That next television media rights deal I saw again today, where the WNBA may break off away, and Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese are going to be involved in the CBA. So, yeah, Clark's going to make a lot of people a lot of money. UConn guard Paige Bueckers spoke with reporters on Friday about Clark's early WNBA tenure, praising her ability to generate exposure. Quote, Caitlin has brought in so many new eyes to the game, and we appreciate that. When people tune in to watch her, they leave the game fans of so many more. Beyond just Clark, Bueckers said the entire WNBA rookie class, including Angel Reese, is, quote, doing extremely well. You wouldn't want to give any praise of just Caitlin, well, would you? It's just a high level of basketball. I think a lot of new eyes are watching. They're impressed with the level of talent and impressed with the level of physicality. That's kind of what the league has been. And that's pretty much about where her praise ended. She was part of the 2020 class with Clark, Reese, Brent, and Camila Cardoza, with the Huskies guard, the top overall player coming out of high school. She had All-American honors, 21.8 points a game. That's pretty good. 5.3 rebounds and 4 assists. And that was a return from an ACL. So that's going to be interesting. That game, by the way, in case you're wondering, between Iowa and Bueckers and UConn in the Final Four, drew 14.4 million viewers. That's pretty interesting, right? So it's going to be interesting to see if that translates, what that looks like from a rating standpoint. I'm sure there's already media members talking her up, trying to make her the next big hero. We'll see. I mean, I kind of doubt it. You got to realize Caitlin Clark broke how many records in college? All-time most prolific scorer, etc., etc., etc. It was just a whole another level of interest with her coming in. Again, Paige is going to benefit from Clark's popularity because it's going to make her more money. They should all, siphon off a % over to Caitlin. Why don't you do that? Tell me what you think, black and white sports supporters. Peace them out. Till next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time on Black and White Sports.